Well, hello and welcome to GFWC's Talk with Impact. GFWC is the General Federation of Women's Clubs, and this particular group is a virtual group, so we boast membership from across the country, and our particular chapter is called Impact. And what General Federation of Women's Clubs, they were founded in 1890 with the idea of and the purpose of promoting civic improvement through mostly volunteer work, but we've expanded that to education and other kinds of services. So today we try and reach many different communities and improve the lives of everyone in communities. Tonight, I am lucky enough to be joined by Teresa McBean. She is pastor at North Star Community, which is, well, I'll let Teresa explain a little bit more about her community, but it is heavily focused on being a recovery type of community. But tonight's topic is called Conversations About Discord and How to Turn It Down. Discord can happen anywhere, as we've all noticed. It's been going on right now politically, but as Teresa and I were chatting the other day, we both pointed out that discord can happen anywhere. It can happen when you're out and about at the grocery store. It can happen within your own family, especially if you have teenagers. There's a lot of discord. And then it can happen at work. And what we need to do is recognize that discord, and we need to also have a toolbox of skills for toning down that discord and working through dialogue so that everyone's opinion gets heard, and everybody feels like their voice really counts. So, Teresa, I would like to welcome you. And would you like to tell us a little bit about the community that you're the pastor for?
Well, maybe set a little bit of the context for why I would even be talking about a conversation like this. So, yes, we're just about 21 years old. So that means we started this ministry when I was 2. Not really.
I see that.
But we're 21 years old, and we started as a focus between faith communities and recovery, because 21 years ago, there was in a lot of the mutual aid societies like AA and NA and OA, there was a real careful boundary about having a faith experience as it related to being in your recovery meetings. And so people who wanted to combine both their spirituality and recovery were feeling a little on the wrong foot. And so we wanted to be a bridge to that. That's not so much a problem now, but that's why we started. Great. And then because of that, be doing it for 21 years, what we've really learned is that most of the roots of substance use disorder, and we find that because people feel disconnected. And so the things that we talk about are all about subjects that we've tried to garner some experience on that relate to the very issues that I think COVID and our political environment, the stress of our economy, have highlighted in our culture today. So I actually think the things that we're learning together in our community could be helpful to other communities.
Well, great. Well, now, Teresa, I read your blog recently, and it was about discord. And I know that you wrote it on the day that the Capitol was being stormed, and you didn't intend for it to be a political statement, but that was just a prime example of discord. And you had some suggestions about how that could have been handled better and how any type of discord could have been handled better. And one of the strong messages that I came away with from your blog was that we have a responsibility to others. We are only responsible for our own actions. We can't control the actions of others, but we are responsible for whatever actions we make and how they affect other people. Is that your opinion?
It really is. I believe we're responsible for ourselves, and part of being responsible for ourselves means being responsible to others. Yeah, absolutely.
Great, great. So let's say the discord has started. We have forgotten that we have a responsibility for others. What are some ways that we can turn around? I mean, we live in such an environment where it's us against them, winner against loser, haves against have-nots. And sometimes the speech between the two groups, it's funny, you pointed out in your blog, if I'm on this side, I'm saying that the other side is doing this, this, and this, and it's unacceptable. And then the other side is saying the same things about our side. So the communication has broken down. But as you said, communication is not an easy thing to repair. So you were talking to me a little bit about the guidelines about communication that really need to be set and the boundaries that need to be set up before any discord can be taken down a notch. And I think you mentioned a safe environment, the safety to have that conversation. Can you talk a little bit about what that means and how to establish it?
Sure. So I think that safety is a really important thing in having all conversations, and we're, to stay on my responsible theme, we're responsible for learning the cues, I think, for when we're having a safe conversation versus when we're not creating safety. And we're responsible for creating safety in the conversations we're in, noticing when safety isn't there, and then having a really simple skill set. This is all really simple stuff, or else I wouldn't know how to do it. A really simple skill set that will help us understand how to back out and reestablish safety. So people give us cues that they are not feeling safe. And if safety in a conversation is not present, stop talking. Because without safety, it's only going to get worse. So one example I would use is if you see somebody saying things like, you don't understand, or why aren't you listening? Or you're not hearing me, or just why do you always blame me? Or I couldn't help it. These are all warning signs of a lack of safety in the conversation. And I think that if we could get some nice basic skill sets to help us, we could then back out of that conversation, reestablish safety, and go in for a little bit deeper conversation later. But instead, we're talking at each other, and we're creating more and more division, and we're getting further and further away from a line where we could find common ground. So I think that's one of the issues that I think we need to address. And if I could give you one example that would come out of our community.
Sure.
I would say that in establishing safety, it's really important to beware of the thing that somebody made this up, not me, but I love it. And I've known it for so long, I can't remember who said it. It's called the writing reflex, RIGHTING reflex. So we just reflexively want to write statements. We want to correct the details. We want to get the information. We want to make sure somebody understands our position. And so I think that really contributes to discord. So the first thing we would do is, if we notice ourselves writing, reflexing, apologize for that. I'm sorry. I mean, I didn't need to say that. So I think that would be a really key element. Instead of us always trying to write the other person, keep it safe, and then we can move to an understanding of some of the other elements of conversation.
Right. Now, I find sometimes for me, I think safety in a conversation and a dialogue is going to be different for everybody. Everyone's personality and everyone's comfort level is different. I come from a big Italian family. If you raise your voice at me, I might not even notice. But someone who comes from a quieter family, they might interpret a raised voice as being aggressive, and so then their safety is broken. So I think that we really have to pay attention to things like like tone, and maybe sometimes the words that we choose and the attitude. During our teenage years in this house, we were famous for saying it's not what you say, but how you say it. So I think tone and attitude. But I've also noticed from working with kids that were at risk and came from some disadvantaged backgrounds, I've noticed that the environment in which the dialogue is taking place was really crucial to whether or not they felt safe. So you find that that is also true in the people that you come across? All those things really come together to produce that safe space for them to talk in?
Well, tell me a little more about what you mean about environment.
So I found a lot of kids, for instance, if I were talking to them in the hall, that they were willing and able to have the conversation in the hall as long as their back was to the wall of the hall, where they could see what else was going on in the hall, see who was coming and going, things like that. Some kids preferred to have the conversation out in the open rather than going into an office to have a closed door conversation. It's just all in that. And I've also noticed that at work, sort of that whole environment plays into a power struggle. For instance, if you're called into your boss's office, you're on your boss's turf. Where if you maybe had the conversation in a lunchroom or somewhere in the hallway or somewhere else in the office where it was more neutral, it's not my territory, it's not your territory, then you feel safe for having a dialogue and you can speak openly, things like that. And again, it's everything from body language, tone to environment to really how the subject, I think, is approached. If you come to me and go, I need to talk to you, that's really not going to create a safe space.
Right.
So,
well, I think a lot of your example, I would put under the category of a trauma response, right?
Right.
So I think you said something about this earlier, but I think it's a really good point to say that one of the things, the way we're responsible to other people is to pay attention to them and understand, where they come from, what their background is. Why do they need to be in the hall? Why do they have to have their back up against the lockers before you have a conversation with them?
Right.
All those things. And so I think you make a really great point in that good conversations are very inefficient. And that's a really important, you can't just cut to the chase in most situations, to have a conversation that could possibly lead to discord, right? Because those are going to be sensitive subjects. I mean, you're probably not going to have discord over whether you get nuggets or a fried chicken sandwich at Chick-fil-A. They're both good, right?
Right.
But the discord comes in when somebody feels sensitive or vulnerable or hurt or just really pissed off. Right. So yeah, I think being a student of others is really important. Yeah.
Right. So can we switch a little bit and say, we find ourselves in a conversation that is getting heated. The discord is really ramping up. And as you said, one skill or one kind of coping mechanism we can use is just say, you know what, this isn't a good time for us to have this conversation, and walk away. But oftentimes, especially now, we're seeing between political parties, these are groups of people and the discord is up and up and up and potentially becoming violent. What do we do if we find ourselves in a conversation where it is just getting ramped up and we don't want to walk away? We're invested in the conversation. We're invested in the people that we're having a disagreement with. We want to stay and see this through and get it worked out. What are some of the skills that we can use, or what do you suggest we do at that point to try and turn things around?
So let me give you 2 points. So say that you're heated and you need to take a break. Don't just back out of the conversation because that looks like withdrawal.
Right.
But start by immediate reframing. I care about you so much. And for whatever reason, I seem to be struggling to know what I'm really thinking. And I respect you so much, and I respect this topic so much. I need to take a little break to gather myself so that my best self shows up for this conversation. Right?
Good. Right,
All
right,
about me. This is on me. I'm
right.
the one
No
that,
blaming.
right?
Right,
You didn't do anything. I love and care about you, and I really respect the conversation, and I'm really engaged. I'm not just checking out, and I'm not a chicken, and I'm not withdrawing from you, but I need to put some more. You've given me a lot to think about is a really great statement, right?
right, right.
Another point would be, another example would be, always lead and end with, I care about you, and looking for common ground, right? So you're getting a little heated about whatever. You just stop. You know what would really be helpful for me is, I just know that we've got common ground. Where is that exactly? Because, and if you can come up with it for yourself and ask this, really curious, like, because I think you and I both want the same thing. We both want to live in a world where our children are safe and healthy and reasonably happy and have a shot at a good life. Would you
Right.
agree with that? So
Absolutely.
we're in common ground, right? And
Right.
so when you've got that common ground, you can always return to common ground with curiosity.
So
So
it's almost like a reset there. If you find that common ground to take off from again.
yes, and you
Yeah.
can go back and you can keep returning to the common ground.
Right.
The
Right.
other thing that I think that we really, really need to improve for ourselves is letting go of needing to make sure somebody knows our position all the time.
Right.
Now, this is very hard for me because I like my position to be known, because I'm afraid that if I don't share my position, you're going to think I'm agreeing with this crazy ass idea you've come up with about how you're going to keep the world safe, right?
Right.
This sounds
Right.
crazy to me, and so I've really had to work on this idea that I need to earn my place at the table. And I earn my place at the table by creating an environment where people who talk to me believe that I respect them and that I will always have dignity in the conversation with them, that I will keep it safe, and that I have the capacity for empathy. And that capacity for empathy is the ability to really hear what they're saying and believe them when they're saying it, that it's true for them, without it getting all mixed up in me feeling like their very different beliefs are somehow taking away from mine.
Right. Right.
You
And
know,
that's a stumbling stone. I think that's going to be a work in progress for a lot of people, because there are so many different cultures and so many different points of view. And when you're growing up, very few people are taught that just because someone has a different point of view, that's okay. That doesn't diminish your point of view.
right,
Just
right,
because it's different doesn't mean it's wrong, and it doesn't take away from your light just because their light's shining as well. So I think that that's a work in progress for everyone to remember that.
well, and I think it's especially challenging for women,
True.
because, and I think this is quite gender specific. I think we're really used to not having a voice at the table, and if we've tried to have a voice at the table, we've really had to do one of two extreme things: learn how to constantly apologize for having an opinion, or getting really big and really leaning in and really intimidating at the table. And so to have this more nuanced perspective for a female, where you don't need to know how I feel about that, nor do I need to apologize. And I have a lot, I'm okay. I've got reasonable confidence and I can have a lot of curiosity about you. This is not going to be natural for most women of my generation.
Right. Right.
I am hoping those that are coming behind us are coming in with a little bit more sense of security. That's unfortunately not exactly what I'm seeing when I'm meeting
Right,
with people.
right. Well, and I will say when I was growing up, one of my mother's favorite phrases to me for various reasons was, Kathy, everything that comes into your head doesn't have to come out of your mouth. And that is an accurate statement, but I think for so long I struggled to get my opinion out that I did say, oh, I have a thought and y'all are going to hear it. Well, you're right. Not everyone cares about what I have to say. Not everyone needs to hear what I have to say. And sometimes it's not beneficial in a situation. So why even say it? But
Well, not everyone even deserves to know what you have to say.
good point. Good
Okay.
point.
So while I'm giving, because we're the women in the room, and I'm talking about the fact that we need to create an environment that has respect and dignity and all that. That's our work to do. It is also our work to study other people, and if they are not showing up with the same energy, they don't deserve to hear our opinion.
Agreed.
It's not going to be beneficial. So we can move to respectful curiosity and silence, but somebody really also needs to kind of earn the right to hear how I really feel about something. They have to teach me that they're safe and that they're going to treat me with respect. And if they're not, I can back out, get curious, get to know them, maybe establish a little bit more of a relationship, and maybe respect will grow over time. But I'm responsible for observing, a relationship environment to see if this is a place that deserves
Invest your
energy.
time.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, sure.
And that goes nicely with our next point. When you and I chatted earlier in the week, we talked about, sort of the toolbox to making a secure situation and helping calm discord. And you said one of the most valuable things to help tone down discord is to know your values and be absolutely concrete on your values and what you stand for and what's important to you, and don't waver and don't step off your box, so to say, because of someone else's antagonizing you. And I thought a lot about that, about, do people really sit down and do they say, these are my top, let's say, 5 values. This is what's important to me. This is what's non-negotiable. And no matter what you say or what you do, these are going to remain firm in my soul. And you and I discussed how that's really establishing those values and what they're concretely going to be. That's a lot of self-reflection.
Right.
You really have to take that time to dedicate to decide what those non-negotiables are for you. But also the flip side of that was the self-reflection to know why, when someone says a certain thing to you that starts to make your blood pressure go up and your temperature go up, why is that the button that is being pushed? Why is that an issue for you?
Right.
Look at yourself, not them. Don't ask why they're saying that to you. Say, why is that bothering me so much? Does it offend one of my core values, or is it from an experience that I've had? So for people who aren't used to doing that self-reflection, those deep questions, can you sort of start them off on a path? What would you suggest they do? Is it journaling? Is it just sitting down and taking your time? And what kind of questions do they ask themselves to establish those core values and to sort of look into what experiences and what kind of baggage am I carrying that's making me react this way?
So first off, the great thing about relying on our values rather than our beliefs is that our values are very internal for us and no one can affect them. No one can do anything to affect our values or to change them, but we've got to make sure I think, in my opinion, that we're living out of them. And when we're living out of our core values, when our internal core values are matching our external behaviors, then we're usually pretty calm people. It's when there's a disconnect between those two that we get uncomfortable. And that's when we tend to make practices that are not so great. So nobody is responsible to have the same values we have. And we are absolutely not ever, ever, ever responsible for teaching anybody or guiding anybody or impacting anyone else's core values. Karen and I have had this discussion before about what age, even with our children, do we begin to back off and say, I did my part, and now I'm transitioning away, and you are establishing your core values. And I as a parent of 3, I find that extremely difficult. But, here's what we can do. You can Google core values and get a sheet. There are a lot of them. There are a lot more core values in the world than I actually hold. I can tell you that. And you can begin to explore them and look at them and say, and here's the other thing that really reduces conflict is when you kind of work on knowing what your core values are. A good question is this my core value? Or is this one that's stuck on me from my family system of origin or my culture? What's my core value? This is my life. Okay. And then when I know that, then this other thing that no one ever told me, I don't know where we lost these important educational. Was I just flirting in class when they taught it or what? I had to go look at it. But the other thing about these core values is that you have to consciously think about what the core value is of your 10 or 20 core values, which one's in play at any given moment. Now, I think Facebook would be filled up with puppy dogs and baby pictures if we remembered that, right?
Right.
Because Facebook should not be a place where we are addressing core values. It's fake. I'm not talking about fake media. I'm not talking about that because I don't like that concept, and I bleh. But it's a faux world. It's not, there's no intimacy there, but it feels like it. Brene Brown, who's a shame expert, has said that so often what we experience is shared enemies. And that makes us feel like we have a connection. And so this is what happens on Facebook. We have shared enemies. And we bash the same people back in response, or we cheer the same people on. And it's a giant Facebook echo chamber.
And it also creates a false sense of security. I have seen people that I've gone to high school with say things on Facebook that I know in a million years they would never say to you to your face if they were standing in a room with you. But it is that false sense of bravado that you are behind a screen, no one can reach you. I can say whatever I want.
Right. So we get our core values, and once we sort of get, and that takes a long time. It took me a long time. I had to peel. Some of mine were gorilla glued on me, and I was carrying them around on my back from my family system of origin, and they were just dead weight. Honestly, I think when some of them lifted, I actually lost real weight. It was fantastic, right?
Well, it's funny that you mentioned that. I just read a funny story about this family, 3 generations of women, they all hosted Thanksgiving dinner. And it got down to the 4th generation, and every generation had cut off the top of the turkey. And so it got down to the 4th generation, and they were newlyweds, and the husband said to the wife, "Why are you cutting that turkey top off?" And she said, "I don't know. My mom did that. So that's how I do it." And so she went to her mother and she said, "Why did you do that?" And she said, "Well, my mom did that. So I did that." I went to the great grandmother and they said, why did you cut the turkey top off? And she said, because when I was younger, we had a small oven and the whole turkey wouldn't fit in.
Yeah.
But these women were just continuing that tradition. It was so ingrained in them that they didn't even ask why. And I
Right.
think a lot of our values are like that.
Right. And so there are values that we're carrying around that we don't even agree with upon a pause, right? We don't actually agree with them. So that's our work. And people can be supportive and helpful, but that really is good work for us to do. And then the next step would be to say, what core value is important to me here? So let me give you an example that comes out of our community. So suppose in our community, we have a mom and a dad and 3 kids, and one of the kids, 16 years old, all of a sudden starts smoking a lot of weed. Okay. And mom and dad don't like this, and they shouldn't like it. Smoking weed these days is very dangerous. I can give you a big speech on that, but I know that's not the subject for today. But mom and dad get really concerned. Mom and dad want to do what? What's their goal?
They want their child to stop.
They want their kid to stop.
And to be safe and healthy.
And to be safe. But that is not their core value. Their core value is they want relationship with their son. Because these parents understand quite wisely that if they lose relationship with their son, nothing good is going to come from that. Now, they really want the weed smoking to stop immediately, cease and desist. But they're afraid of what's happening to their kid, that they're going to lose their kid. So out of their fear, rather than their core values, they don't pause to prepare. They don't take 77,000 deep breaths. They don't call somebody like me up on the phone to say, what are effective strategies for dealing with this? They just lay the hammer down, and they take away all the electronics, and they take their door off the bedroom, and they waterboard the kid to try to get the source of the dealer so they can call the cops. I mean, these things happen. But what we would know if we had the core values is the bigger question is, what's going on that you think you need this? And if that comes out of a place of curiosity and love and their deepest core value, which is we've got a problem and it is never going to get better by creating relational distance, it changes the whole way the family reacts to the problem. And it creates an opportunity for there to be a better solution.
And less discord.
Yeah, and less discord.
I was wondering if we could just circle back to when we started talking about core values. You said there's a difference between beliefs and core values. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Mm-hmm. So beliefs come out of our core values, right? But they're the next generation. So for me, I have this strongly held belief that we were created for connection and community. And so tribe and community is super important. I think the opposite of addiction is connection. So disconnection's a really bad thing, right?
Right.
My core value is loving community. What I believe about how establishing a community and how it should look is my belief.
I see.
Right? So in my community, if connection's really important, we are a church, not much of one, but we are one. But I say we're not much of one quite seriously because we've stripped away everything super intentionally. We've stripped away everything that doesn't build connection. We don't take up an offering because it doesn't build connection. We happen to have people that come from a homeless treatment facility to be with us. It doesn't build connection if you've got the haves and the have-nots putting stuff in a basket, right? Plus, we'd have to keep up with the basket, and we're not well organized. So, we don't have a top-down organization. When we got our new building over at South Lake, I would come in and, about every 4 or 5 days, somebody had painted a room. No one asked for that permission. She happened to be one person and she happened to be a great decorator. Who's going to complain about that? Because we have a flat structure. We say we're all bozos on the bus. Where does this come from? It comes from this value of that power dynamics must be eliminated to create safety and to create community. We have conversations. We don't have messages. People raise their hands in the middle or just shout out. And so we have a very conversational style. Why? Because top-down stuff doesn't work in building community. It's extremely inefficient. It is as annoying as all get out, but it builds community. So that's the value. So that's an example of where your beliefs stem from that. And it's your beliefs that you end up having discussions with around, right? Because somebody might say to me, it annoys me that guy in the back keeps asking you these questions in the middle of the message. And I'll say, well, let's talk about that. Tell me what's annoying about that with you. Well, blah, 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 blah. And I'll say, well, the value that's coming from is this. How does that sit with you? Oh, yeah. I mean, it's making him feel part of the community. Oh, really? Yeah. How annoyed are you now on a scale of 1 to 10? Well, I'm about a 5 now.
Right.
Would it help you if I tried to find a way to call on him a little bit less when he raised his hand? That would really help me, because this other guy's part of community too. See, but we don't have to discuss our values because those are very personal to us.
Right.
But so it gets all worked out in the beliefs.
I see. Well, I see that we are kind of getting close to our time. I didn't know if anyone in the chat would like to ask any questions, but Teresa has said that she is more than willing and encourages you to bring forth any questions. And Teresa, I would like to give you the opportunity to give your links, if you'd like to say what they are, to your community, so that if anyone was interested in joining you, that would be great. You can just pop them in the chat if you would like. And as we close, I would like to just kind of review what we've talked about to calm discord down. So we have talked about establishing your core values and knowing we're staying in the box. We're not going to travel away from those core values. We've talked about establishing a safe area, safe environment, and when I say environment, I mean everything from the actual physical environment to the way the conversation unfolds, making sure it's safe, making sure you're being respectful, and that not only you have self-dignity, but you're offering dignity to the person that you are speaking to. And the big one is being empathetic. Be willing to hear the other side. You don't need to disagree or agree, but you do need to hear it. And that whole self-reflection. Think about why this is bothering me. Where is this coming from? What do I stand for? And why does this sort of get underneath my skin? So if you keep all those together, those are all great coping skills to tone down discord. But I keep circling back to that. I am responsible for myself, but I am responsible to others. If we keep that first and foremost, and just remember, nothing is so crucial or controversial that it has to be so violent and ugly, that I think that tones discord down. Would you agree?
I would, but could I add one more thing that I didn't
Absolutely.
say super important when it regards to empathy?
Sure.
Empathy has to be spoken and reflected. So you feeling empathetic does the conversation no good. And empathy is when you test the waters to see if you understand both what they're feeling and why they're feeling it. I hear you're really upset about curfew. Is that what it is? You're feeling like you're being treated different than all the other kids, and it makes you feel like an oddball. In that conversation, you've found feeling, I'm upset, you're irritated, whatever you want to say. what they're thinking about it, I'm scared it's going to make me an oddball. And what is the fact? The facts are over this kerfluffle. So you have to speak that back to the person in order for them to receive it. Empathy that is not received is a waste of empathy.
Well, I'm glad you said that, because this is the first time I've ever thought of empathy as something other than just internal.
Right.
Empathy is actually an action, and it needs to be sort of, you have to use it in order to build it.
Right.
So
right.
yeah, great.
So thanks for letting me clarify that.
Sure. Well, Teresa, thank you so much for being so generous with your time earlier in the week and tonight, and sharing your thoughts with us. I think that we're all very helpful, and I know it's a lot of sort of self-work, but I think that it's worth the investment to kind of create some normalcy and some peace going forward from now on. So does anyone have any questions? I don't see any in the chat box. So, and oh, great. Teresa did put her information in the chat box if anyone was interested. So, well, I just want to thank you again, Teresa. I really appreciate your time and your thoughts.
Sure. Well, it was it was great knowing about your organization and about each of you. So thank you guys for letting me be on here today. Appreciate it.
All right. Take care.
All right.
All right. Bye-bye.